Gentlemen, we're going to talk about pretty much week three's lessons. We're going to talk about the cultural changes in Western Europe. Task you will complete, read the information provided in the topic, pretty much all the worksheets here. Complete the written task. This is going to be a little bit different in that if I'm going to go and scroll down there real quick, and we'll go and go those first, a little cart before the horse. With that being said, there are actually questions, no more A, B, or C, or put in order or anything like that. So I want you to go ahead and think about these as you read the first part A. Question number one, explain how both religion and geography played important roles in shaping life in Europe. So you're going to need to include both of those in your answer there. Number two, what is a fjord? How were they used by the Vikings? It explains it a little bit, but again, you just kind of have to think outside the box why the fjords would be very useful to the Vikings. Number three, what is a concordat? How was it used in Europe during the medieval times? And again, like I said, you don't know what these are, but we will as we go through the reading here. Number four, what did it mean to be excommunicated by the Pope? Who was excommunicated in the passage and why? We talked about this in the past, especially when we talk about the split of the Roman Empire quite a few weeks ago. But again, that excommunicated. And again, they'll talk about it again in this reading here. What three groups invaded Europe during this time frame in the lesson? And from where did the invasions come? Remember, these aren't necessarily going to be in order. And when I ask for three groups, you're going to need to put the three groups in there. All right, so let's go ahead and head back, and I'm going to go ahead and read this for you. That way there's no problems with the IEP. We're going to start off with task number one information, and there'll be a separate video for task number two here. We see a good map of the invasions of Europe there. We have the Magyars coming from Hungary. If you can kind of see the area here. We have the Vikings coming from the north and Muslims from the south there. So let's go ahead and start. Europe is invaded. After Charlemagne died in 814, his empire did not last long. His son Louis was not a strong leader, and after Louis died, Louis's sons divided the empire into three kingdoms. So we see that over and over again, where you learned last week, we have that strong leader, he winds up passing away, and just due to ineffectual leadership. So we see this over and over again. Remember back to Alexander the Great there. Anyway, let me go on. These three kingdoms were weakened further by a wave of invaders who swept across Europe in the 800s and 900s. From the south came Muslims, who raided France and Italy, from Spain and North Africa. From the east came the Magyars, a nomadic people who settled in Hungary. And then from Scandinavia came the Vikings, who raided territories all over Europe. Scandinavia is in northern Europe. Norway, Sweden, Denmark, and all parts of Scandinavia are part of Scandinavia today. Much of Scandinavia has a long, jagged coastline. It has many fjords, or steep-sided valleys that are inlets to the sea. The Viking peoples lived in villages in the fjords. They were known as Norsemen or the Northmen. Scandinavia has little farmland, again with that rocky, pretty much in the same way as Greece, with those pretty much valleys. This forced the Vikings to rely on the sea for food and trade. They became skilled sailors and built sturdy boats called longboats. These boats could survive the rough Atlantic and also navigate shallow rivers. So as you go across the Atlantic and then you raid into other places, you're able to go up these shallow rivers to get further inland to attack people. In the 700s and 800s, the Vikings began raiding Europe, probably because their population had grown too big to support itself at home. The word Viking comes from their word for raiding. They robbed villages and churches, carrying off grain, animals, anything else of value. They even conquered part of western France. This area was named Normandy. You'll see that in another question. After the Norsemen who ruled it. Next, we're going to go in the Holy Roman Empire, which is just the opposite of the western side of pretty much the split of Rome, with the eastern side being the Byzantine Empire that we learned about earlier. The raids by the Muslims, Magyars, Vikings helped destroy the Frankish kingdoms, and those are the ones, again, in France and northern Italy. In the 900s, the Eastern Frankish kingdom, which became known as Germany, was divided into many tiny states ruled by counts, dukes, and other nobles. In 911, a group of these nobles tried to unite Germany by electing a king. The king did not have much power, however, because the nobles wanted to remain independent. One of the strongest kings of Germany was Otto the First. He fought the Magyars and sent troops into Italy to protect the Pope. To reward Otto for his help, the Pope declared him Emperor of the Romans in 962. Otto's territory, which included most of Germany and northern Italy, became known as the Holy Roman Empire. Most of the emperors of the Holy Roman Empire were not very powerful. Two of the strongest ones, Frederick I and Frederick II, tried to unite northern Italy and Germany under a single ruler with a strong central government in the 1100s and 1200s. The Pope fought against these plans because they did not want the emperor to control them. They banded together with Italy's cities to resist the emperor's forces. As a result, both Germany and Italy remained divided into small kingdoms until the 1800s. Just kind of explain here who was the Vikings and why did they raid Europe. This reading checks as you go along, which is still very good. Rise of the Catholic Church here. Main idea, the Catholic Church spread Christianity through Western Europe. And again, it says the reading focus here, do you have a goal you would devote your life to reaching? Read to learn the goals of the Catholic Church in the early Middle Ages. All right. Both region and both religion and geography played an important role in shaping life in Europe. By the time the Western Roman Empire collapsed, Christianity had become the official religion of Rome. After the Roman government fell apart, the Roman Catholic Church began to play an important role in the growth of new civilization in Western Europe. Why were monks important? At the time Rome fell, most of Northwest Europe was not yet Christian. One exception was Iceland. In the 400s, a priest named Patrick traveled to Ireland, where he spread the Christian message and set up churches and monasteries for several hundred years. Keep on going there, and you guys can look over those pictures yourself there. Irish monks played an important role in preserving Roman learning and passing it on to the people of Europe. Patrick's success inspired others, including Pope Gregory I, or also known as Gregory the Great. Basically, Gregory I was a pope from 590 to 604. He wanted all of Europe to become Christian, and he asked monks to become missionaries, people who were sent out to teach their religion. We've seen this before as well. In 597, Gregory sent 40 monks to southern Britain to teach Christianity. The monks converted Ethelbert, ruler of the Kingdom of Kent. Ethelbert allowed the missionaries to build a church in his capital city of Canterbury. Meanwhile, Irish monks brought Christianity to northern Britain. By 800, monks were spreading Christianity through Europe. Most people in Western Europe had become Catholics by 1050. Monasteries played an important role in medieval Europe. Monks schooled people, provided food and rest to travelers, and offered hospital care for the sick. They taught carpentry and weaving and developed better methods of farming. They also helped to preserve knowledge. Many monasteries had scriptoria, or writing rooms, where monks made copies of important works. Basically, they would sit there at a desk for hours at a time and just copy books over, word for word, handwriting them out. And remember, this is before the printing press. The monks copied Christian writings, including the Bible, as well as other Roman and Greek writers. Literary efforts of these monks helped to preserve the Latin language. Over time, monasteries began to play a role in Europe's politics. Monks took a vow of poverty, wore simple clothes, and ate simple food, but their monasteries could make money. Each monastery produced goods and owned land, and over time, many of them became wealthy. The leader of a monastery is called an abbot, and many abbots became involved in politics. They served as advisors to kings and acted as rulers of the land near their monasteries. Why is Gregory VII important? The growing role of the abbots and other church leaders in politics caused many arguments over who was in charge. Kings wanted church leaders to obey them, while the Pope claimed that he could crown kings. In 1073, Gregory VII was elected Pope. He wanted to stop nobles and kings from interfering in church affairs. He issued a decree or order forbidding kings from appointing high-ranking church officials. The Pope's decree angered Henry IV, the Holy Roman Empire at the time. For many years, the Holy Roman Emperor had appointed bishops in Germany. Without them, Henry IV risked losing power to the nobles. Henry refused to obey Gregory. He declared that Gregory was no longer Pope. Gregory then stated that Henry was no longer emperor. He excommunicated Henry, excuse me. This means to exclude a person from church membership. We went back through there. Catholics believed that if they were excommunicated, they could not go to heaven. When the German noble defended the Pope, Henry backed down. He traveled to Italy and stood barefoot in the snow outside the Pope's castle, asking to be forgiven. Gregory forgave Henry, but German nobles still chose a new king. So Henry was out, even though him and the Pope made up. When Gregory accepted the new king as emperor, Henry went to war. He captured Rome and named the new Pope. Gregory's allies drove out Henry's forces, but the dispute was not resolved. In 1112, a new pope and the German king finally agreed that the only pope could choose. In 1112, a new pope and the German king finally agreed that only the pope could choose bishops, but only the emperor could give them jobs in the government. This deal, called the Concordat of Worms, was signed in the city of Worms. A concordat is an agreement between the pope and the ruler of a country. So basically, it's a formal contract between a pope and a king, and kind of lays out their powers. By the time Innocent III, another pope, became pope in 1198, the Catholic Church was at the height of its power. Innocent was able to control kings. If a ruler did not obey, Innocent would excommunicate him or issue an interdict against the ruler's people. An interdict forbids priests from providing Christian rituals to a group of people. The Pope hoped that by using an interdict, people would pressure the rulers to obey. So basically, best way to give them an offer they could not refuse. So we would take the priest, and with the priest not actually servicing them, a lot of folks feel that they couldn't go to heaven. Okay, that is the end of first part here. Again, going over these questions. If you have any problems with them, please email and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. Thank you very much.